When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject, Circle of Light. User, BlueERT. Posted, September 26, 1996.
Growing up, there weren't many hard and fast rules in our home. In the wintertime, there was only one we really had to worry about. Never play between the houses. The reason for this had everything to do with living in the snow belt, where all homes were built with a steeply angled tin roof. Those roofs were built in such a way that when enough wet snow accumulated on them, it would slide right off, landing next to the house with a heavy whoomp. Our neighbors on the left side, the Melancons, had a double lot, their house built on the corner furthest away from us. It left so much room that when the snow slid off that direction, you heard it but couldn't feel it. On the other hand, our neighbors on the right of us, the Parks, were so close that there was barely room for those miniature avalanches. When they fell, it created a sort of wind tunnel effect, compressing the impact until it was strong enough the wall in our living room would jump 2 or 3 inches inward. Those ones sounded like a bomb going off. Anyone awake when it happened was guaranteed to jump. Given we're talking hundreds of pounds of compressed water, snow, and ice coming down like a rocket, you can understand why Mom and Dad didn't want us playing in there. The danger of being crushed wasn't enough. There were the icicles. They hung down on either side of the house like glistening crystal stalactites, sometimes growing up to a foot in length. My brother Mark and I loved throwing snowballs at them, seeing how many we could dislodge at a time, shattering them like glass. The true joy of the game was when you finally nailed a fat one. Watching as it fell, sunlight refracting through it into a rainbow of color before it savagely punched deep into the snowbank beneath it. Across the street from us was a rail yard where plows piled snow into heaps the size of small houses. When we wanted to play King of the Castle or dig snow tunnels, that's where we did it. The idea being it was safer than our own yard. Mark and I would be over there all day, letting our imaginations run wild. Cops and robbers, Arctic explorers, astronauts on the ice planet. We invented so many games I can't even remember them all. The only thing that ever interrupted us was passing freight trains, some of them up to a mile long. The ground would rumble as they went by, their wheels grinding so loudly you had to cover your ears. The way I remember it, those snow hills could be up to 100 feet long and a dozen feet deep in places. To someone our size, they felt like mini cityscapes where we carved out our topographies, assigning a name to each little section. 2nd Street, Main Street, and so on. Then there were the sewers, 2-foot-wide horizontal tunnels between sections painstakingly carved out by Mark with Mom's little garden trowel. He always had this innate sense of where he could dig and how much weight the passageway could bear before collapsing. Crawling through one of Mark's projects, the rough-hewn walls dragging at your snowsuit was exhilarating, like you were truly exploring an underground world. Once you stuck your head through the opening, all you could do was inch toward the circle of light at the other end. The more Mark dug, the more confident he got, and the further away that circle of light became. His masterpiece was going to be the Eisenhower Tunnel, named after the real one in Colorado. We'd driven through it with our parents the previous summer. Mark was beside himself with joy. The rest of the way home, he couldn't stop talking about how one day he would build a tunnel just like that. I really think he might have, given the chance. My brother's version of the Eisenhower Tunnel took him almost a week to finish, only a few days ahead of our return to school after Christmas break. I've wondered if having that deadline compromised the whole thing, forcing him to work faster than he should have on something of that scale. Maybe the real answer is a kid shouldn't be tunneling underneath hundreds of pounds of snow without supervision, no matter how good they are. When it was done, Mark was ecstatic, doing victory laps from one end to the other. He was so proud of himself. I was proud of him too. I loved my brother very much. He was halfway through one of those victory laps when I felt the rumble of a passing freight. Mark must have felt it too, because it looked like he froze, not sure whether to go forward or back. As in love with his work as he was, he knew that this was the wrong place to be when the ground was moving. Before he could make a decision, the tunnel pancaked down around him, killing him instantly. Or at least, that's what I like to tell myself. The alternative is that my little brother slowly suffocated while I made a feeble attempt to dig him out. When we finally got to him, it was too late. The circle of light was long gone, taking Mark with it.
Subject: playing chicken. User: R8der. Posted January 22nd, 1997.
The house we live in was built by my great-great-grandfather, Brady Elias. It's a turn-of-the-century Queen Anne with gabled roof and gingerbread trim, passed down through our family for generations. It's beautiful, stately, and very much haunted. Before she passed, my grandmother Jackie, who had lived there for almost 80 years, swore up and down that not only was there a ghost, it was a malicious spirit who wished to hurt her. "It keeps moving furniture," is what she would always say. I should mention that Grandma Jackie had started to go blind in her early 50s. By her 70s, she could only see in shades, navigating her home by touching walls, furniture, and counting her steps. If someone were to be moving her furniture, it would have made getting around a serious challenge. Mom and Dad seemed to think she was just doing this for attention, completely ignoring the fact Grandma did start having more falls in her last few months of living there. Sometimes, I think they just wanted her out of here so we could move in, letting Dad off the hook for having to pay a mortgage. Now, they're experiencing weird shit in the house too, and having lots of whisper fights that aren't all that quiet. The harmless stuff happens outside. Because the house is on a sloping piece of property, we have two pretty big staircases leading to the front and side door. Both sets of stairs were carpeted around 15 years ago in an effort to make them safer for Grandma, particularly in winter when the ice sets in. The side stairs lead to a door in the kitchen, and one night we were sitting around the table eating dinner when we heard someone running up the steps. None of us were expecting company, so we sat waiting for a knock on the door that never came. Eventually, Mom got up and opened the door to the small stoop. It was empty. We never heard departing footsteps, and there were no boot impressions in the snow whatsoever, all of which added up to the kind of mystery my parents don't like dealing with. They quickly declared we'd all been imagining it and went back to eating, ignoring my quizzical stare. I knew damn well it hadn't been my imagination. Not only hadn't it been my imagination, I'd heard footsteps on concrete, not padded carpet. Pointing this out to them would have been an exercise in futility, so I didn't bother. The steps refused to be ignored, however, returning many, many times, always in the same way. Running steps on a hard surface, followed by nothing at all. I can't tell you how many times I watched Mom or Dad rip open that side door, trying to catch whoever they thought might have been pranking them. The serious stuff, the stuff that makes me want to move out of here the second I turn 18, seems to happen in the living room. This is also where my grandmother had the most accidents, including the final fall, which put her in the hospital. I made this observation once to my parents and was sent to my room without dinner, which I consider to be a victory. Pillows get torn, which my parents claim is the stitching bursting under pressure. I'm not a furniture expert, but I've never heard of such a thing, and neither had any of my teachers. Then the intercom started talking. Grandma had had it installed when Dad was talking about getting her a home care nurse, something I don't have to tell you never happened. The circuit ran from her bedroom to a speaker microphone on the far wall of the living room, next to the hallway entrance. Dad would use it to call Mom when she was upstairs taking naps or try to summon me for whatever dumbass reason happened to be on his mind. I didn't like him using it, so most of the time when I heard his voice coming through the tinny speaker down the hall from my room, I'd ignore it. It never occurred to me to prank him, and I wish it had. At least then I wouldn't be so pissed about him accusing me of responding to him with the sound of children's laughter. One time I was out shoveling the walk when I heard him somewhere on the second floor shouting my name. He must have walked right into my bedroom looking for me because I watched through the window as he realized I was outside. The raging red color in his cheeks drained to white. He would never tell me what he had been so mad about except to say that the intercom must be picking up stray radio signals. It was removed after that. The worst incident so far has been Mom's accident. Instead of moving Grandma's stuff to storage when we moved in, we ditched most of our furniture and used hers. One of the few items we brought was a glass-topped coffee table, a holdover from when Dad actually made decent cash working for a web startup. He was convinced the whole internet thing was a fad and ditched out before the company went public. By now, he'll know how that went for us. Mom and I were going to watch 90210 together, so she'd gone to make herself a Sanka before it started. On the way back from the kitchen, a piping hot drink in hand, something pushed her hard from the back, sending her face first into that coffee table. The top sheet practically exploded, cutting up her face and arms. She spent a week in the hospital, the whole time claiming she'd tripped. It was such a bad cover story that if Dad hadn't been on camera working at the gas station when it happened, he'd have been locked up. So now we all know what the house is capable of, and we're still living here. Like idiots, we're playing chicken with the devil and hoping he blinks first.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.